Welcome to the Fantasy Guides podcast. My name is Andrew Toysher. I am joined today by the owner and operator of Fantasy Guides, Steve Rippey, and Fantasy Guides contributor, Jacob Rhodes. And today we are here to talk about mobile quarterbacks, or as I have deemed, the 32 shades of mobile QB. And Steven, let's hop right into it. You put out a post recently about mobile quarterbacks and how it's kind of game-changing, game-breaking to have one on your team. Please tell us about your recent post on the gram.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason I did it is I was texting you guys and I was thinking, we talk about the Konami code, we talk about the advantage the rushing quarterback gives in fantasy, but I was like, man, there's a lot of them now. So when everybody was talking about Jayden Daniels and, like going as the QB 12 and underdog, I thought it seemed high. Or no, QB 11, actually. He's up to QB 11. I was like, that's too high. That's too high. And we were all kind of discussing it. So I was like, well, let me go back and do like a refresher and go back and look at data. So I went back the last 10 years because Jayden Daniels, guy can run. We saw in college during his career there, he averaged 10.8 rushing attempts per game, 60 rushing yards per game. I know that's college football, but let's just, play a game with me. We take that to the NFL over a 17 game schedule. That's over 1,000 rushing yards, which we know what 3 quarterbacks in history have done that, I think. Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick, and Justin Fields. So that's pretty elite territory. So it's like, let's play a game. Let's play the Jayden Daniels NFL game. But I'll just bring up a few of the stats from that. 3 times in the past decade. So this doesn't include Michael Vick years, but in the past decade, we've seen Lamar Jackson twice and Justin Fields once rush for over 1,000 yards. And they averaged 23.8 points per game. Now, if we look at quarterbacks that rush between 450 and 600 yards, I kind of coined it the Tyrod Taylor line because a lot of people don't remember Tyrod Taylor was a QB1 back in the day in fantasy football.
Put some respect on Tyrod Taylor is what we're trying to say.
Exactly. And those quarterbacks, there was 14 of them in the sample size, averaged 18.3 points per game, which is a lot. That's what CJ Stroud averaged last year. And we all know how high everybody is on CJ Stroud. So what I'm saying is Tyrod Taylor is essentially the same as CJ Stroud. And then
put that in headlines. That's the next caption for a big Instagram post.
Seriously. And then there were 34 instances of quarterbacks that rushed for at least 450 yards. And all but 3 of them averaged 17 points per game. And 2 of those instances were Colin Kaepernick, which I thought was kind of interesting. But that number is the same amount as Jared Goff averaged last year, and he was the QB 7. So, you don't even have to be like this great NFL quarterback. As long as you're a good rushing quarterback, you're good for fantasy. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I thought those were some interesting stats. So I wanted to bring that over to let's just talk about, maybe some rushing quarterbacks in the NFL and how they could be an advantage for fantasy football.
All right. I will give somebody $20 if they can tell me who is 5th all-time in single season rushing for a quarterback. Don't look.
I'm going to guess Justin Fields.
Wrong. 5th most in a single season. Jacob.
Cam Newton.
Wrong. Who the heck is Bobby Douglas? I was looking at stats before, and I'm like, no, I must have my thing set up. I don't want guys from the 1940s. 1972, the quarterback for the Chicago Bears.
I don't know that.
He probably had like 20 pass attempts over the season.
Oh, I guarantee it.
There's not a lot of quarterbacks in Chicago Bear history I do know other than like Jim McMahon.
Bobby Douglas. Who the heck is Bobby Douglas? Bobby Douglas, come on the podcast. We'll welcome you kindly. So, yeah, basically what Steven looked into is that rushing quarterbacks break the NFL, break fantasy football. And we talked so much about late round QB, and maybe that might be going away because there are so many mobile quarterbacks. And we're going to look into it. We're going to look case by case at every single quarterback we think will probably start this year, at least the majority of games. We put them in some sort of group. We have, I think it was 4 groups. We called them elite rushers, great rushers, good rushers, non-rushers, or I like to call them statues, Jared Goff. Mm-hmm. And we're going to look at each group and basically see like what stands out. Is there some values we can take away? And is there some dudes we're going to be like, holy crap, I didn't know you I didn't know you were like that. I didn't know you were like that. So we're going to start off with the guys who we know are like that. There will be no surprises here. Start with some elite rushers. Elite rushers. We have 3 that we qualified as elite rushers. These are dudes who we can just chalk up expect for the most part, barring injury. They will rush for 701 was our little marker there to 1,000 yards. And Steven, I saw right there, you next to that, you put 22.3 points per game on our show sheet. What are you trying to say with that?
I'm just saying that's what's happened so far in the last 10 years. That's what they've averaged. Now there's
if you hit that 700 mark, that's your average.
Between 700 and 1,000, 22 points per game is what they've averaged. So
this is a Steve Rippey Fantasy Guides guarantee, 22 points per game. If you have one of these guys, just draft them.
It's also possible Lamar Jackson's pulling that up a little bit, but we did have, Jalen Hurts, I think twice reached that mark, if I'm not mistaken.
That is 41 rush yards per game for those doing math out there.
Yeah, that was the year. Remember Daniel Jones? He's gone over 700 yards. So,
oh my gosh.
So, but Daniel Jones was the top 9 quarterback that year. So Daniel Jones is a perfect example. Joshua Dobbs is a perfect example of if they can run and, like Jacob said, get over 30 to 40 yards per game, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. That's why I'm more concerned if Jayden Daniels, for example, can stay healthy than I am if he's a great passer. Because if he plays 17 games and rushes as much as he did in college, he's going to probably hit that 700 mark.
Yeah.
So from that list, we came up with Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, asterisk there, because he is not a starter. If he started, though, I feel confident he would get close to that number.
Yeah, I kind of pulled him off my graphic because I just didn't know if he'd start the whole time, and then also 3 looked prettier. Jacob, I think you've been a big defender of Jayden Daniels. His ADP right now is QB 11 right now in the 102 overall QB 11. What do you have to say about that? Are you getting excited just hearing that?
It's rich, but I don't think it's too early to where you're hurting your fantasy team or taking a player that you might be sad that you missed out on in that kind of range. That's not a range where anything's guaranteed. So I'm fine taking a quarterback that can get within that top 5 QB range and be an elite rusher and make a difference for your fantasy team. Steve was kind of pointed out, he averaged 94 yards a game on the ground his last year at LSU.
Yeah. He had some bad games early in his career at Arizona State. But no, last year he was awesome. It's rare to see a college quarterback go for 1,000 yards.
It is. 94 is huge, and that's Andrew and I were talking about it earlier. That includes sack yards because the college game takes that away, so it's probably even a little higher than that in the NFL's game. But we're not expecting 94. But if he can get to that 40 mark, that's a big time difference that he's going to make.
Well, and right now I'm looking, Andrew. He's at 102. Jordan Love is at 96 overall. I think he's going to pass Jordan Love. I think especially if this hype keeps building, there's nothing that can raise Jordan Love right now.
No.
His weapons they're okay. They're not amazing. I don't think there's any excitement that could get Jordan Love to go any higher. But I still think
he's a bit of a statue too.
Yeah, I think he could run. I think he's more athletic than like a Jared Goff type, but I just don't think he does. I also don't think that's his game. Jayden Daniels, but I'm not going to be surprised if he passes up Jordan Love, and I don't think it would really change my opinion on him being worthy of that ADP. That's what we got to it. Basically that post was talking about is this crazy? Should he be the QB 11? And I think it's fine. I thought it was at first strange that he passed up Caleb Williams because Caleb Williams has all the weapons and he can run himself, but I think he's going to run more than Williams, and so I don't think it's crazy at all.
All right, so I'm old enough to remember when Jayden Daniels was firstly going as like the QB, I think it was like 1920s. So firstly, get you sickos an underdog early.
Got a couple of those.
Getting into those drafts. Use promo code GUIDES to hop in there and get those early drafts way back when. I know, Jacob, you said you got some of those. I mean, he would if he could have. Use promo code GUIDES when you sign up for underdog. Get yourself a draft guide with it which will show us telling you draft the crap out of Jayden Daniels at QB 20 ADP as well. So get you that draft guide and that deposit bonus. Get on underdog, use that code GUIDES. Are you guys at all worried that Jayden Daniels is going to explode into a million pieces and you'll be playing Humpty Dumpty with him at some point this season though? Because I've seen him run. It scares me.
I'm not any more worried about him than I am the other guy on the graphic here. with
You
Anthony
watch him out.
Richardson.
I am a little bit. There's that. I meant to put it in the post, Andrew, and then I completely forgot. That one video of Jayden Daniels where Jacob, I think you or Jesse had sent it, but it was like 1st and 10 in the first quarter.
Oh yeah.
And he like does like a John Elway helicopter jump.
Full send.
Full send. And I'm like, the coaches have got to be pulling that up. The current Washington, like Cliff's got to be in there going, hey, see that? I don't ever want to see that again.
Yeah.
Like that's my hope. But I mean, it's hard to tell. You can coach somebody to stop doing something, but whether or not they don't, I don't know.
He's 5 pounds heavier than Lamar Jackson and 2 inches taller. So
I think he beefed up though.
And he probably did beef up, and Lamar Jackson also just lost weight. So
yeah, that's true.
I think you're going to perceive his weight and stature a little bit differently when we actually see him on an NFL field. But we'll have to see.
Well, so I'm looking at our rankings, and we haven't re-ranked, I don't think, since we talked about Jayden. But we have him as a QB 13 right now, behind Love, Purdy, and Caleb Williams. I'm going to move him up. I don't know about you guys, but I think I might move him, not to be lame, but probably to about where his ADP is. I may move him up above Jordan Love, though. What do you guys think?
I think I'm already there. Hold on.
Are you?
I'm pulling my rankings right now. As I was talking to Jacob, like
yeah,
I was
already
not.
there. I'm a QB 10.
I think we just need to refresh our rankings.
I might just have him too low right now.
Are you dragging us down right now? Are you being?
Yeah, I'm a QB 10. I can't go any higher.
Well, that was the thing.
I have him at QB 10 as well.
It's me. Well, I think I did this thing where I was like, come on. Like, he's still only got the 1 year. He's not fully proven. He's a rookie. And, I do have some of the injury concerns baked in. I'm not going to lie about that. But I think I'm going to raise him after this just because when you look at those numbers, it is a cheat code. They don't call it a cheat code because it doesn't work. So yeah, I think he's worthy of where he's going. Obviously Lamar, we know that. But Andrew, I'll let you start off. Anthony Richardson, your favorite human being on the planet, I would probably guess. QB5. We also talked about that. Defend why you think he should be QB5. You don't seem to be too worried.
No, I'm not. Because, guys, have you ever heard of this one guy named Jalen Hurts? Like, he's pretty good in fantasy football. In fact, if we just go look at some of the seasons, he is absolutely exploding, game-breaking. I think he is one of the highest, third highest ever points per game from a quarterback. So I'm just saying, like, that guy was pretty good. And now we look at my guy, AR, right here in the back. For those on YouTube, you can see it. My beautiful jersey. AR is back here, and he's got Jalen Hurts coach in a very similar environment, and he's bigger than Jalen Hurts. He's faster than Jalen Hurts. He's got a stronger arm than Jalen Hurts. So doggummit, he doesn't have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but I think the dude's going to run the crap out of the ball. And the allegations I was fighting, completely valid. In fact, we were texting in the group chat about like, hey, what's our verdict on this? Is Anthony Richardson too risky? And you guys were talking about injuries and how he's a bad passer. I said, what you're saying is completely valid. I'm drafting him anyway. And it's just as simple as my comment. He run good, I draft. And that's it. And I would take Jayden Daniels a little bit above his ADP right now. Not that high, because Anthony Richardson is the big boy who's going to run in touchdowns. And if his arm sucks, they're not going to throw the ball. If his arm sucks, they're not going to throw the ball less. Sorry, if his arm sucks, they will not run the ball less. They will throw the ball less, and they're not going to protect him from injury, because if he can't throw, well, you have to run him, because if you're not going to run him and he can't throw, he's worthless. So run him into the ground, Anthony Richardson, QB1 overall season. I'm actually moving him up in my rankings right now.
Oh, okay.
You provoked me.
Now, Andrew, see, you're a sicko. So how many leagues are you in this year?
Too many. It'll be close to double digits.
Yeah. So just pretend you're some guy that's working in an office and he does one fantasy league. He pays $100 with his coworkers and stuff. And that's the only league he does. You're going to tell that guy to draft Anthony Richardson 56 overall?
I'm getting the zoom in look right here. Hold on. Where's my zoom in? Where's my zoom? Yes. Draft
Okay.
Anthony Richardson.
All
Do it. Forget everything. Responsibility out the window. Live a little. Now, responsibly speaking, you might. Yeah, I think there's other values, but I really want Anthony Richardson on my team.
Now, I will say where he's going at 56, like he's going right behind like Jayden Reed. He's
Yeah.
going right in front of James Cook, Calvin Ridley,
3
Xavier
picks
Worthy.
above CJ Stroud is surprising.
So I don't actually, if you just look at that, he's got way more game breaking of an advantage than those guys, I would think. So I get that. But there's also so many good quarterbacks after the fact. Like I still lean towards, as I said in the post, trying to get Kyler Murray 2 rounds later, because I think that the difference between the two won't be drastic. I think it'll be close. And who knows? Kyler could even do better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I say let's get there. Lamar Jackson, he's going to run for a lot of yards. We know what he is. I think he really belongs in that upper tier and is getting pushed up boards because we've also seen him throw for a bunch of touchdowns. And with Anthony Richardson and Jayden Daniels, I think our main concern is, can you back it up with a little bit of arm to really ascend to that next top level, or at least run in a bunch of touchdowns? I think we know what we get from Lamar.
For me, it's all about injury for AR. Like some of those, like that game when he got the concussion against Houston, I mean, he was just running with reckless abandonment.
It was awesome.
It was awesome to watch, but that's the other thing. I don't like watching fantasy football where I'm like cringing every time my player is like running with the football. It's like the people that took Christian McCaffrey after the 2 years of him being injured. Like they were probably uncomfortable that entire season, you know?
I think this was me every time I watched Christian McCaffrey on Red Zone. It was just eyes covered the whole time.
You know, and we talked to fantasy football therapist on Instagram, and he is an actual physical therapist. He doesn't seem all that worried about it. However, he did also say, I'm going to like grimace or something every time he lowers his shoulder. To me, that doesn't show full confidence.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he's overvalued a little bit, but I completely get it because I do think he's like Cam Newton reborn.
Every fantasy player you are going to draft has risk. No matter what you think, they have risk. Richardson just has a little bit more than the other guys around him.
Yeah, he does. And I'm not. I think we all aren't usually big injury guys. Like I usually am like, I never was with Christian McCaffrey. I'm not worried about Justin Jefferson this year. There's lots of players I'm not worried about. AR's one though. The guy's just always been injured.
245. That helps.
That's a big boy.
Big human being.
Yeah. to clarify though, the injury we're talking about, we're not like, oh, he's going to tear his ACL just because he's a runner. Like it's very specific. He has a history of shoulder injury, and he lands on that shoulder a lot. I'm saying personally, being a Colts fan that I am, and really looking into it, not saying that you guys have heard it and still don't care, but they cleaned up his shoulder. This is a shoulder injury that goes back to high school that he never had the time, money to take care of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Colts cleaned him up. That's why I'm fine with it. Okay. Totally get why you wouldn't be.
It is his throwing shoulder.
Ride the lightning, friends. Ride the lightning. Well, draft you some Anthony Richardson.
And I don't want to. Last thing I'll say on this is, there's a difference between when I watch Lamar, I don't see Lamar take big hits. Like I feel like even
so good at it.
Even when he like the best was Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson just didn't get hit. Mm-hmm. He would when he was at his peak scrambling. He could slide. He had that baseball slide perfect. He'd get out of bounds. He would, kind of dive.
Yeah.
You never saw him take a big hit. Lamar is similar to that. He just knows how to, not quite like Russell Wilson, but he knows how to just kind of move his body
so fast.
Yeah, he does.
So fast.
But Richardson does remind me of Cam Newton. Cam Newton took so many big hits. Mm-hmm. Even Josh Allen to some extent. Maybe it's just because they're so big.
They are.
I feel like they kind of put their body in harm's way, and I don't care how big you are, eventually it catches up.
Yeah, those guys are all within like 5 pounds of each other, just for reference. So sure. They're all big, and they know they're big, and they think they can take bigger hits than everyone else.
The downside to Lamar Jackson, career high rushing touchdowns is 7, and he had that one time,
which is crazy.
So Jalen Hurts, that body type, that Anthony Richardson body type, 15 touchdowns from Hurts, 13 touchdowns from Hurts, 10 touchdowns from Hurts last 3 seasons just on the ground alone. And that's where we really see that game-breaking points.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So ride the lightning. Do it. You know what you shouldn't do is actually, no, you should still draft these guys, because this is our next group of quarterbacks that we have ranked. And these are guys who are still, like, in your mind, this is a mobile quarterback. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We're still fully in that. It's just the rushing yards themselves aren't fully there. Maybe they do a little bit more with their arm. These guys routinely run for 501 to 700 rushing yards each season. This includes Jalen Hurts, the QB2 overall in ADP, Josh Allen, the QB1 overall in ADP. And as you guys can barely see on that little graphic right there is Kyler Murray with the going off the board as the QB7.
You better hope you never run into Kyler Murray.
He
I
would
can't
kick
stand
my
He's going to
my
make
back.
you look real small.
he weighs way more than me, and I am way taller than him. So I do not want any of that smoke. Jacob, defend your boy Kyler, or what stands out to you on this great rushers group?
For Kyler, for me, well, he's at my quarterback 4, so a good bit above ADP there, but this is a guy that we've seen him rush with great success before. He has a career high 819 rush yards. He can definitely run the ball. This is an offense that I think is going to be very good. It's going to be much improved this year, and it's a defense that sucks. So usually bodes well for fantasy football. I like his ability to move on the ground. I don't care if he looks like he's running like an angry hamster. He gets the job done. Okay.
I don't think he just looks like a hamster that's almost happy. Like I wouldn't even say an angry hamster.
It's
best
kind
part
of like the inverse of Pacheco almost.
Yeah, exactly.
When he runs, though, it's like his really good running form. His upper body or his head doesn't move, and but his hips go side to side a lot, and so it's a toddler for me. It's a toddler waddle. More so. Again, he's way faster and more athletic than me too. Kyler, leave me alone. Don't beat me up. I don't live in Missouri. Stay away.
Yeah.
But to your point,
he's rushed for 11 touchdowns before too, so he can hit that double-digit mark. It would be surprising if he did it again this year, but if he's another guy too that we're a little worried about his injury history, but he did finish the season strong after he came back from his injury last season. I think fully a year removed now from, I believe, the ACL. I just expect him to play a full season this year.
Yeah, with Kyler, for me, like the injury concerns are more like I kind of feel like he's going to miss a game or two. You know, like I feel like I'm just planning on that for
twist
the
an
season.
ankle.
Whereas AR, I'm just worried like, oh, week 4, bad shoulder injury, done again. You know, like that's my biggest worry with
ride
AR.
the lightning. Ride the lightning.
But no, I think Kyler from that list, QB 87, Josh Allen QB 37, or sorry, 37th overall.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray 81st overall, and then Jalen Hurts 39th. I think Murray's for me easily the best value out of that bunch.
Yeah, Kyler Murray is absolutely incredible, and not to say too much more on it. We've only seen, I'm looking at it right now, 13 quarterbacks have ever scored above 22 points per game. I'll say it this way. Only 13 quarterbacks have scored 23 or more points per game, and Kyler Murray is one of those. So he's in this elite upper tier. If he can convert with the more rushing touchdowns on his upper end finish and more passing touchdowns on his upper hand finish, hello, Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride, he truly could achieve that game-breaking value on a game-to-game basis.
Well, and I think it was maybe it was the 2021, 2022 seasons. There was both of those seasons. The Cardinals started out amazing. Remember, weren't they like undefeated one of those seasons for 8 games or something?
Yeah.
And he was insane. Like he was 30 points per game for like 8 weeks.
Yep.
And then both those years, the teams fell apart. So we've seen him for like a good stretch be the best by far quarterback in fantasy football. Now, I don't think that was ever sustainable, but it fell off big time those seasons. And you just got to hope if they can just not have that big fall off, you know.
New regime. We'll see.
And we all think Marvin Harrison is going to be insane. Trey McBride, I think, is awesome. And then I don't hate some of the other wide receiver pieces that he has on the team. So, I'm all in on. Kyler's the guy I think I'm going to wait for a lot in drafts. I'm going to really try and hope that I can, even if you took him like a little bit early, like half a round early or maybe a round early, I'd be fine with it.
He's definitely one of those guys that I will reach around earlier for so that I don't get sniped on the following round and miss out completely.
There are 2 reasons why I do not have a lot of Anthony Richardson, despite wanting a lot of Anthony Richardson in all my best ball drafts so far. And those reasons are Kyler Murray and Jayden Daniels. I just know, even knowing that they're back there and that they have that rushing floor to them, it's just so tempting. So I think those are probably the two best values we will talk about today in terms of that rushing upside. I have to ask some worries now. Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, these are regular rushing quarterbacks we know about, we love, we need them in our lives. I mean, it's our QB1, QB2 every year. Steven, are you a little worried about the tush-pushless Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen without weapons? I'll pose it this way. Who are you more worried about? I'm going to make you worry. Who are you more worried about, Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen?
I'm more worried about Josh Allen. I think a lot of people are pointing to the fact that he was actually better towards the latter half of the season when they changed the play calling and Stephon Diggs kind of disappeared. Josh Allen actually got better. I don't like the idea of Stephon Diggs not being his weapon right now.
That's a bold take. You wish Stephon Diggs was
there.
A good receiver was there. Wow.
But look at his ADP. Like now overall ADP, all the quarterbacks are down a little bit. Like nobody's going in the 20s anymore. I think
that was bad last year. That was terrible.
Patrick Mahomes ruined it for people were taking him too high. But I still don't see why Josh Allen is just like, I get how amazing he's been over the last 4 years. It's what he's done has been incredible. It's no other quarterback's really done what he's done for fantasy. But we saw it with Patrick Mahomes last year. He just did not have the same kind of weapons. He didn't have that big Tyreek weapon. And he still had Travis Kelce last year. Now, we all hope Dalton Kincaid can be the next Travis Kelce. And we're optimistic. I think as a whole, like, this almost reminds me of the weapons that the Bills have added, like the movie Moneyball with the Oakland A's. Feels like they've got a lot of decent pieces, but they don't have any superstars on that offense. I feel like a lot of it's going to be put on Josh Allen. Maybe he does run more, which maybe it won't matter then. But when it's so close between him, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, I may move him to 3. He's right now the QB2 on my list. I just think Jalen Hurts' weapons are so much better than his. And same with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, they are. His passing took a bit of a hit last year, and his efficiency on the ground took a big hit. He went from past few years was 6.25, 6.1 on the ground. This past year was 4.7. He just happened to rush for 15 rushing touchdowns, which
was an NFL record.
Yeah,
that's the other thing.
Tied Hurts. Yeah,
yeah. They both did an NFL record, 15 rushing touchdowns. Neither one of them are going to do that. I still would bet on Jalen Hurts getting more than Josh Allen, though. I think there will still be some tush push even without Jason Kelce and Saquon Barkley in the mix.
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts with Kellen Moore coming in is in for at least a boost. Their offense last year was putrid. It was hard to watch. And when you have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts in the best offensive line in football, it's inexcusable. I really think the offense can only get better in general, and we might not have seen the best season out of Jalen Hurts that we've seen yet. The arrow points up. He could throw for 30 passing touchdowns in a season. That's conceivable. Any other thoughts about these great rushers? You guys still feeling good about them generally? I'd made you worry about one, but are you still generally feeling very good about all 3 of these guys?
Yeah. If I draft any of these quarterbacks, which I haven't taken any Josh Allen, but I do have Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson in some best ball builds, and I've felt great about. I've actually really liked those rosters because it's easy to stack some of the other players.
Stacking Allen just feels weird.
What's that?
Stacking with Josh Allen it just feels weird.
If I can get Kincaid, or if I can get who's the guy we love? The other wide receiver, Shakir, or something like late. I don't mind it, but it's easier to do with Lamar and Jackson or Lamar and Jalen partly because they just have such good weapons.
Right.
Yeah, I think we're always in for a good one with these guys as long as they stay healthy, which is going to be the contingency for all these guys. Now moving into our next group of quarterbacks, is where we're going to get a huge lump. The next 2 groups here are way, way bigger than the others. And this group is called the good rushers. And comparatively, the last group is going to be basically statues. So when you see some of these names, don't be super taken back. These are guys who can or regularly-ish rush for 300 to 500 yards. We'll do this if they are playing for a full season. I'm just going to rattle off the whole list. You gentlemen tell me which ones will stand out to you. Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, Will Levis, Bryce Young, Russell Wilson, if he starts, Drake May, JJ McCarthy, Daniel Jones, Bo Nix, Gardner Minshew. Jacob, I'll let you start. Anyone popping out to you is on this list thus far?
Daniel Jones can be a top 8 quarterback if he plays a full season. That's probably the name that pops out to me because he has shown that he can run the ball really well, and they have Devin Singletary leading the backfield this year, and he's not a great passer, so he often takes off. But that's the one name that pops out to me of like, this is a guy that could definitely be one of those elite rushers, but I don't think we see a full season from him, so I think this is a fair spot to put him.
Steven, do you think that Daniel Jones can, I mean, proof of Jacob's point, Daniel Jones did rush for 700 yards in a season.
Yeah.
So, Steven, do you think Daniel Jones could get to that point? Are you willing to draft Daniel Jones this year? He might. Talks are Drew Lock slinging it in Seattle, now in New York. Could be back.
Well, let's just put it this way. We go on our draft guide. I may have to expand our draft guide to more than 200 players because Daniel Jones ADP is 201. So draft him. You could take him with your
free.
your last pick. So yeah, there's no risk involved. Here's the thing though. He did come off that injury. I don't think 700 yards is any long. I don't think he's gonna do that anymore. Could he get to 500? I think that's probably his high number. I think he could get to 500 yards. But the other thing is when he finished top 10, Anthony Richardson wasn't in the NFL. Jayden Daniels wasn't in the NFL. Caleb Williams wasn't in the NFL. Jordan Love wasn't a starter. So these are all guys that I think could do better than him. Even Dak Prescott had a bad year that year, and he finished behind Daniel Jones. So I don't think he has QB8 upside anymore. I'd say maybe like QB12 upside might be his high end for me now that I think about it. But he's free, like we just said. But he does stand out on that list because, like Jacob just said, he's
done it before.
Yeah. The other one that stands out to me a little bit is Will Levis. Now he didn't rush for that much last year.
He feels like a statue.
But in college he did run.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing is I'd have to look at. Didn't Daniel Jones
57 yards last year on 9 games? So
57. What are we doing, Will?
6.3 a game.
I almost wanted to put him in the non-rushers category, but I was like, I know he can run. So
it's less than Baker per game, just for reference.
Yeah, it's weird. So I feel like I need a full season out of Will Levis to make an opinion on whether he can run or not.
Yeah.
Another one though that stands out to me that could be a good value, I think, still Deshaun Watson. Cleveland, they still have one of the highest over-unders for wins this year, according to DraftKings. They have one of the best rosters in the NFL. If Deshaun can just get back to 75% of what he was before.
I saw PFF ranking that they had the Browns at 3 behind the Niners and the Eagles
for the best rosters. Yeah, that team is loaded.
It is.
And Amari Cooper, we love that guy. Jerry Jeudy, if that's your number 2 wide receiver, I think that's fine. David Njoku is your tight end, one of the best offensive lines in football. A defense that's going to keep putting you back on the field. I think that Deshaun Watson, and we've seen him rush for close to 500 yards. He usually is over 400 yards prior to the last couple seasons, but he's still young. And he's relatively injury free other than when he tore his ACL his rookie year. So I think he could be, I say he's relatively injury free. He missed last year with the shoulder injury, but so I think he could be a value, but I don't know. I'm going to ask you guys about Justin Herbert for a second, because now being tied to Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, what if the guy can run? I've said this before. He's the frustrating player because he's built like Josh Allen, maybe not quite as thick, but basically he's built like Josh Allen, and just as fast as Josh Allen. Like he had a 4.6 something 40 time. Like he is a really good athlete. You got to think they're going to try to tap into that, don't you think?
It feels a lot like Trevor Lawrence, where it's just like a guy that passes better than he can run, so he typically passes, but they can both move. I just don't see it happening.
If they'll scheme it a little bit more. Like, remember, now
I would be surprised if they put him in harm's way more than what they can or what they should with the kind of group of running backs they have, and just him having a past couple seasons of weird injuries. And I don't know. I feel like they keep him out of harm's way.
I'm just going to say, I think there's a chance we see more rushing out of Justin Herbert in that offense than we're accounting for. Like, where everyone talks about the pass volume, it's going to go down. Of course it is. It's going to go down, way down. But what if there's more read option than we were accounting for? More schemed up runs for him. because granted, it was a completely different player in Colin Kaepernick, but that guy, he popped on this list a lot for a ton of rushing yards. And I'm not saying necessarily I think Justin Herbert's going to go for like 700 rushing yards, but I think his career high is in the 200s. What if he goes over 400? That's a big difference than what we've seen with him in the past. So he's a guy I'm keeping my eye on.
Yeah, I don't think Justin Herbert will run more than he has in the past, at least not significantly more. And to be honest, in the past, like Justin Herbert doesn't belong in this group. It's just kind of the upside of like we think he could be in this group. He's mobile enough to be in this group athletically, historically. He doesn't run like this. And that's because he's a good boy and he listens. And when coach says drop back, throw ball, he does it. So good boy, Justin Herbert.
But every offense he's been in, it's been like they've been one of the highest passing teams.
He has
his
thrown
entire career
for 5,000 yards once. So
yeah,
that's all they do is throw.
Yeah,
this is not that. This isn't going to be that. So that's what I'm just
not the way he plays. It's just not the way he plays.
I'm going to draft him. I don't have him yet, but in some league I'm getting him because just off the off chance they try to use him a little more in the run game.
Yeah, I'm gonna strike I don't think it'll change. I don't think that'll be the reason Justin Herbert has a great season this year. I don't think he'll have a great season this year. I think he'll be just fine. You'll be able to start him, stream him. It's gonna be weird and ugly to see Justin Herbert on the waiver wire next year. And I'm not gonna I'm gonna scoop him up because that's just who I am, and it'll be too tempting. But I don't think I'm gonna love it each and every week.
No, maybe this doesn't excite you, but Jim Harbaugh is up there talking about he thinks he could play defensive end and tight end because he's such an insane athlete.
Does he think that he himself could play? I think Jim Harbaugh could play defensive end and tight end. Or Justin
I do
Herbert.
too. No, he was talking about Justin Herbert.
How
insane of an athlete he is. So I don't know. We'll see.
There are probably 4+ guys on this list that I think will be fantasy relevant that, like Andrew mentioned, will be on the waiver wire at some point, and should give you even more promise to draft Jayden Daniels late or early in your draft. Because there's safety nets out there.
Yeah, that's true.
One that stands out to me, because of rushing as a baseline, and I got a couple guys after this even. Trevor Lawrence, he has finished as the QB 8 in 2022 and was the QB 13 last year. And that's with throwing no more than 25 passing touchdowns. That's his career high. And I think we started to see progression in that second season of his career where he did throw for 25 passing touchdowns and he was ascending. And we thought, 30 easy next year. This is going to be routine for him. And then last year we saw a regression. We saw some weird touchdown stuff where, like, if I think the stat was if the end zone is 3 inches bigger, he has 6 more touchdowns. And just gross misuse of Press Taylor for some reasons calling plays. Doug Peterson's not. And weird stuff. Like, there is just such a world where Trevor Lawrence routinely rushes for 300 yards. He's failed to do so 1 year where he hit 291. So I think Lawrence could run a whole bunch. I think if the touchdowns hit on his arm, his career high rushing touchdowns is 5. What happens if he runs in a couple more? I think there's just positive touchdown regression in his future, and it could hit. So briefly jumping off of that, we keep talking about Jayden Daniels, rushing quarterback. There were 2 other really mobile rookie quarterbacks in this. Did I say just Justin Herbert? Jayden Daniels, mobile rookie quarterback. There are 2 other really mobile rookie quarterbacks in Drake May and Caleb Williams. Steven, do you think either one of those guys are values this year? Or is it just Jayden Daniels you think could really pop from the mobility?
I think I think Caleb. I think he could. Now, I think this 300 to 500, I think that's what we're going to see out of Caleb. His weapons are just so good. Drake May,
Drake May can move. 698 is his career high in college.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
That's the only thing I'm struggling with that is that offense is going to be bad. I really do think it's going to be bad. I think. Do
you think it's going to be significantly better than the Washington Commanders offense?
I feel like.
Or significantly worse.
Well, I'm just remembering Kyler Murray rookie year, Cliff Kingsbury in that offense. High, like a lot of plays per game, high pace. I just don't know. We got a defensive head coach.
I think the Patriots offense is going to be worse than the Panthers offense.
I think it could be too, and I think it's going to be very like ball control. Like try not to turn the ball over, play defense. So I just think for fantasy purposes, Drake May, I don't think he's going to rush for. I think he will hit this 300 to 500 mark, but kind of like we saw with Justin Fields a few years ago and Trevor Lawrence's rookie year, I could see like 11 touchdown passes. Like I really could see that. DraftKings has them as like the worst team in football right now. I think they have the worst, or the lowest over under for wins. So I just he's somebody I'm really not interested in.
Well, worry with him too is there's been a lot of talk about them playing Jacoby Brissett for some games to start the year. It's the same little worry that they're throwing out there with McCarthy right now for whatever reason with Sam Darnold, but that's something to be mindful of too. Is you might be, if you're drafting one of those guys late, you might be drafting a backup for the first few weeks.
Yeah, that it will be rather unfortunate. And obviously, if you're on underdog, maybe that means a little bit less to you. But yeah, it is definitely something to worry. I don't think they'll get the touchdowns, but would be a point of something to notice. If the Patriots offense is weirdly good, get Drake May off your waiver wire in 1 QB leagues. Moving on to this next group, non-rushers. These are your group of guys who they just don't move. Like when you think of them, they are not a mobile quarterback. It doesn't even, no debate about it, no discussion about it. These guys range from Jared Goff, the statue of statues. Jacob, I'm going to need that stat of Jared Goff's rushing yards per game here in a second.
Ooh, yeah, I got you.
And it ranges up to these guys like CJ Stroud probably could run. I just don't see why he ever will. He just is a pocket quarterback. And we're talking about the value of rushing. Steven, while Jacob pulls up that stat, are you worried that there just isn't? Do you think you can routinely start any of these guys? Obviously, there's guys like Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, Brock Purdy, so I'll walk that back a little bit. Are you extra worried about these guys? Do we see some week-to-week inconsistency, you think, because of that?
I think that's it. I think it's the week-to-week inconsistencies because, you don't have all the outs. Like Josh Allen has an out every time. Like if he can't throw the ball, at some point he's going to take off and run. And at some point he's probably going to run into touchdown. And that's worth 6 points versus 4 and kind of get bailed out. Same with Jayden Daniels. Maybe he has a game where he doesn't even throw a touchdown, but he rushes for 90 yards. And now he's got a baseline of 9 points. CJ Stroud's weapons are so good that and they play so many dome games that I feel like it's gonna be hard to keep him down. I just don't think he has the top 3 upside, and I do think he'll have some of those weeks. I do, as a guy that played a lot of Tom Brady. I'm pretty old, so I played a lot of Tom Brady in fantasy football. There were games I remember where he scored like 2 points. Like he literally lost me the week because there was games I remember they played the Saints and he just bombed, or there was games where like you think it was, he's going to go off this game, but they played the Jets and he did nothing, didn't throw a touchdown. One of the running backs for the Patriots ran in a bunch and he got you no points. I think that happens. We saw it happen with Joe Burrow a few times last year, especially to start the year. Those guys, they just don't have that out. We saw it with Brock Purdy in the game when they played the Ravens, and he literally lost people weeks, lost the MVP title. We'll see it with all these guys. You don't see it as often with the rushing quarterbacks. So I do find myself, like, I haven't drafted any of these quarterbacks on this list. I've taken Aaron Rodgers once because I got him so ridiculously late. But the other ones, I don't think I've drafted much of them. Doesn't mean I won't draft them. Like, I do still like Jared Goff. That's a good offense. Kirk Cousins, I like the weapons. I like they play in a dome, but it's just like even Baker Mayfield was a top 10 quarterback last year. But what was he? 15 points per game, 16 points per game. It's fine. It's not game breaking. It's not like difference making.
Jared Goff rush yards per game. Steve, what do you think?
He had 20 rushing yards last year, so whatever that math is, like
21 rushing yards. Thank you very much. 1.24 per game.
His rushing yards can get a drink at the bar. Steven, come on now.
I'm still amazed. I've asked this before, so maybe you guys have already heard it, but maybe the audience hasn't. Dan Marino, career rushing yards. Do you guys know the answer to that?
Oh, it's like 6. It is something ludicrous.
Career. Now he played from 1983 till 1999. So what is that? 16 or 17 years. How many, Jacob? What's your guess?
That's a long time. Did he hit 102?
I think it was under 100, wasn't it?
Very good guess. I believe it was 99.
Wow. Yeah.
I think he had 99 rushing yards in his career.
That's crazy.
Anyway, kind of a tangent there. But yeah, these guys, they can have big games. They're never usually, like we saw CJ Stroud have like a 40-point game last year. That can happen, but you have to throw 5 touchdowns. I literally think the only time those guys will hit like 40 points, they have to throw 5 touchdowns. for the most part. Whereas Lamar Jackson can throw 2, run into, and rush for 100, something like that. So
Stroud had 3 rushing touchdowns last year too, is worth noting. He found his way into the end zone a few times, surprisingly.
Yeah, so I'm kind of I don't know. I'm not avoiding these guys, but like I don't see me building really, especially we keep talking about Kyler Murray sitting there at QB7. It's going to be real hard for me to take CJ Stroud. I mean, CJ Stroud's going 2 rounds ahead of Kyler Murray for the most part. He's going 2 rounds ahead of Joe Burrow. I don't even feel confident CJ Stroud's going to outscore Joe Burrow this year.
No,
or Dak Prescott even. I think I actually have Dak Prescott ranked higher than both those guys, or at least right next to them.
Yeah.
So, and then like we just talked about, Jayden Daniels is sitting back there. So all of these guys, I think they're fine, but I don't think any one of them's necessarily winning you your league.
Is Jordan Love in the wrong category, or were his 4 rushing touchdowns in 247 on the ground? Was that more of an anomaly than?
I see.
We don't really have a baseline for him, so
he's a hard one because, like, on this list, so Aaron Rodgers used to be able to run. So Aaron Rodgers used to give you some rushing ability. He'd give you like you almost always over 200 rushing yards a year.
Yeah.
But he can't run anymore.
Right.
Stafford's never been able to run. Kirk Cousins never been able to run. Jared Goff, like those guys can't. But then like Geno Smith, just 2 years ago, rushed for like close to 400.
I think he might have hit the old person wall though,
and I think so too. That's why we put him on this non-rushing list.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield thinks he can run, but he doesn't realize how slow he is because he
he gets you that occasional first down when they need it, and he gets pumped up, and that's I love that.
I feel like Tua could run, but he just doesn't. Like he just doesn't.
He's avoiding CTE. So
I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Love actually does rush for over 300 yards. Just because I do think athletically he can, and he could pick up. He really should study Aaron Rodgers' early career film because Aaron Rodgers was amazing at just, if there's man defense and their backs are turned, he just takes the easy stuff. I feel like Jordan Love could do that better than most on this list. Actually, I think he's probably the most athletic out of all the quarterbacks on this list.
Yeah.
I just, it's really hard to sell you on drafting some of these guys like CJ Stroud, QB6, Joe Burrow, QB8, and over the guys who can run a little bit. If you run for 680 yards on the season, so that good, really, or that great, I think, rushing quarterbacks where we had it marked as, that's just that's a touchdown a game. If you rush for 40 yards a game, 680 yards on the season, that's a touchdown. That's a passing touchdown.
Yeah.
And so now you only have to throw 2 passing touchdowns, and it's just like throwing for 3 passing touchdowns. And it's such a cheat.
It is. And it's just, it makes the pocket passer become less and less draftable. And that's what it feels like looking at this. Because we can get some of these rushing quarterbacks after CJ Stroud and Joe Burrow. And then it just feels like if we're drafting any of these other pocket passers, they're fine, but they're just doing okay. They're not winning us any weeks.
You have to take them later, though. You have to strategize and opportunity cost it and say, instead of Anthony Richardson, I'm going to go ahead and draft like a really good wide receiver 3 or my RB2, and I'm going to be set there. And I'm going to play the quarterback game of I'm going to play Jared Goff every dome game, which is apparently just like a rushing quarterback is if you play Jared Goff at home in a dome, and I'm going to pair him and I'm going to match him up. Underdog, if I'm not taking a quarterback in one of the top 10 guys, I'm usually taking 2 or 3 quarterbacks. One of them's bound to score 20 points a game almost all the time if I'm taking decent quarterbacks. And the opportunity cost is I'm getting a really good receiver who is going to consistently hit, or a good running back who is going to consistently hit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just funny. I'm just looking at the list of like points per game. And the guy that keeps standing out to me is Joshua Dobbs because he rushed for over 400 yards.
He's a fifth in rushing yards last year.
He had 13 passing touchdowns, but he averaged 15.4 points per game, which is essentially not even a half point less than what Tua got, or about a half a point less than Baker Mayfield. I mean, the list goes on and on. You kind of start to get to an advantage once you get to Kyler Murray and CJ Stroud. Stroud, particularly if we're talking about pocket passers, and Brock Purdy, they were a couple points per game better than Dobbs. But let's not forget Dobbs also that week 1 when he played, he wasn't I don't believe he was the starter, if I'm not mistaken, and he scored 1 fantasy point. So that's even pulling that number down even more. So yeah, I just think in almost all my leagues, I'm taking a quarterback that's going to run. And the more yards that I think they're going to rush for, the more likely I'm going to draft them.
Any last passing thoughts on any of these quarterbacks or any big takeaways from the day?
These guys can do well for fantasy. It is just a weekly inconsistency is the last thing I'll say, because there were 3 quarterbacks last year that finished in the top 10 that were bottom 10 in rush yards per game. So they can get it done. You're taking more of a risk, and it's a little bit more of a guessing game.
Yeah, I think my takeaway is what I like, and it's different for underdog, but let's just talk more like about your season-long managed leagues. And let's just talk about one quarterback. Superflex is a whole different thing. But what I like about the rushing quarterback too, I feel like you just take one, because like to your point, Andrew, if you want to take Anthony Richardson, go full YOLO, take him at QB5, great. Or Jayden Daniels. Like I'm really aiming for Jayden Daniels and Kyler Murray, I think, in my drafts for most of them. But if AR gets injured, we just talked about Daniel Jones isn't getting drafted. Like these guys, there will be guys available on the waiver wire.
Yeah.
Joshua Dobbs type quarterbacks, probably even better than that. Like you could get probably you might be able to get Deshaun Watson on the waiver wire. You know.
Well, if AR gets hurt, you just pick up Joe Flacco and you're good to go.
Yeah, he was 20 points per game last year.
That's the right answer.
Seriously, like I don't think I'm drafting any of these guys. Like it's not a knock on them. It's just the way the game's built.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Get you a mobile quarterback and your life is so much easier. Great discussion, gentlemen. I'm going to take us out of here. If you want to get more great content like that, go over to the page on Instagram at Fantasy Guides, or heck, find us on TikTok as well. Steven's been posting some TikTok over there on that as well. You can follow Jacob at FG Rhodes FF. You can follow me at Toysher_FG. Keep getting this content. Like, subscribe, share with the friends, let everyone know. And if you've got ideas for what we should keep doing this offseason, drop it in the comments. Let us know. We're always eager to hear more. Gentlemen, say goodbye to the friends at home.
Bye, friends.
Peace.